Recording in progress.
It's the center, the green light comes on.
That's good.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Oxnard Planning Commission regular meeting for Thursday, September 15th, 2022. Our starting time this evening is 6:03. A quick housekeeping item. As shown on the agenda and online, please email all written public comments to planning@oxnard.org. Those wishing to speak during the meeting may do so in person or virtually. For in-person speakers, please submit your speaker card to the Commission Secretary. For virtual speakers, please review the bottom of your screens for the call-in number, meeting ID, and passcode. If you dial in only, you may press *9 to raise and lower your hand. If you are on a desktop Zoom app, you may use the raise hand feature. You may also submit your request to speak by visiting oxnard.org/city-meetings by 3 p.m. the day of the meeting. Because the meeting is electronic, all votes will be done by roll call. And with that, we'll move to our Commission Secretary to establish our quorum.
Chair Chavez,
Here.
Vice Chair Abreu,
Here.
Commissioner Connolly,
Here.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Nash,
Here.
Commissioner Zielsdorf,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Thank you for that. And at this time, we'll turn to our interim planning and manager to do an introduction.
Yes, thank you, Chair Chavez. So as you guys can see, we have a new commissioner joining us, Commissioner Anna Marie Zielsdorf. So I reached out to Commissioner Zielsdorf to ask her a few things that she would like to share with everyone here. So she wanted to share that she loves Oxnard and has lived here for 18 years. She currently works for the Lexus of Oxnard as a business development manager. She loves her family and has a husband who is a teacher over at Channel Islands High School. She has 4 adult children and is the grandmother to 1 granddaughter. She volunteers for the Boys and Girls Club Greater Ventura for the past 8 years, the Food Share for 8 years, and Channel Islands High School for 6 years. In her free time, she has climbed the Sierras, raced cars, which is very interesting, and loves to travel and eat local fare. She also shared a quote, which is "Live every day like a thank you note," which I think is very nice. So we're all excited to have Commissioner Zielsdorf joining us here on the commission, and looking forward to continue to work with her. So.
Commissioner Zielsdorf, do you have anything that you want to share? Nope. All right, so we'll go ahead and move to our next item, which is our Pledge of Allegiance. After the conclusion of our Pledge of Allegiance, we'll have a moment of silence for our Supervisor Carmen Ramirez as her picture is displayed in front of us. So Commissioner Zielsdorf, would you mind leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
Hand over. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We'll now move to our next item, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to address the planning commission regarding any item not on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission may do so at this time. However, the commission cannot take action on any items presented during public comments and will be referred to the commission secretary. All public comment speakers will have 3 minutes. Mr. Secretary, just confirming that we did not have anyone sign up, correct?
That is correct, Chair. No one signed up or comments not on the agenda.
Thank you for that. We'll go ahead and move to our next item, which is our consent agenda. This is approval of our minutes from our July 7th, 2022 meeting. Commissioners, what is your pleasure? Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair. I move to approve the July 7th minutes as distributed.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded for the approval of our minutes from our July 7th meeting. Mr. Secretary, can we have a roll call?
Vice Chair Abrego,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Connolly,
Yes.
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Aye.
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
And Chair Chavez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And just for the record, the reason why Commissioner Zelsdorf was not called was she was not here for that. So she would reflect an abstention. We'll proceed to our ex parte declarations for public hearing items. Vice Chair Rejo.
I have none, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Connolly.
I have none. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Meyer.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nash.
None, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Zelsdorf.
None, thank you.
Thank you, and none for myself. So we'll go ahead and proceed to our first public hearing item, item F1. The project name is City of Oxnard amended 29 housing element. This is planning and zoning permit number 20-620-03. And we will turn to Ms. Kathleen Mallory, who is our planning and sustainability manager on this item. Ms. Mallory.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, Commissioners. We're excited to be here this evening. It's kind of a banner night, kind of a very momentous night for the Planning Commission. First, I wanted to introduce, just to tell you who's online to support this. We have Emilio Ramirez, the Housing Director for the city. I also have Jenny Gastelum with PlaceWorks. She's the consultant team helping with the housing element. And then I have Heather Davis assisting on this item. So really the three and a number of other people behind the scenes have been instrumental in getting it this far. So this is an important step for the city. This is a condition, the document before you, our 2021 through 2029 housing element. It has been determined by the state of California Housing and Community Development Department to be conditionally compliant. And provided this document is authorized to advance to the city council this evening, this is a major win for the city. And I'll just point out that we would be the 29th city in the SCAG region to have a compliant housing element. That's 14%. There's a number of other cities that haven't submitted their housing element. And as the statistics point out, it's not easy to get this far. The document before you really does demonstrate a collaboration with the state of California and with the community, extensive community input through the process to get this document before you. You have seen this before, obviously, this document. However, once we submitted it to the state, there was additional dialogue and conversation where they wanted some additional information. They wanted some other analysis. So the document does reflect an agreed upon housing element pursuant to conversations with the state of California. If the city did want to change this document, what would happen would be that it would put us on another 60-day review process. That means we would go and submit it back to HCD for input. They'd have 60 days to provide input, and we'd go back round and round and round. We've been doing this with them for a solid year. We submitted it last October. The reason why we've worked so hard to bring this document before you is because, one, we believe in having good documents that reflect what our council's vision is, as well as what our community needs. But also that what hangs in the balance is PHLA funding, which is the money to fund our Homeless Solutions Center. And that is most important to address the needs of our most vulnerable in the community. And we identify ways to improve all segments of our population in our housing element. So it's important that we have a certified housing element from the state by the end of the year. And action this evening, as well as commission action in early October, helps us achieve that goal. I also wanted to point out, you have a letter that was received regarding water and sewer availability. Besides the fact that I'm kind of nerdy and I love energy, water, and all things sustainability, I was excited to be able to address this proactively. The comment was made regarding that we don't have sufficient water and we don't have sufficient sewer capacity. One of the most important things that we look at is infrastructure capacity. As a professional and also working with housing and the Public Works Department, it's critical that we make sure that what we build can be supported with sufficient infrastructure. Recently, I gave a presentation to the California Energy Commission Board, speaking regarding water policy, speaking about what we need and how proactive Oxnard has been in providing for water in the city. And I'm proud to communicate what the great work is that our Public Works and city is doing. Really, as compared to other cities, the city has proactively been developing water sources and water plans, such as the city's indirect potable reuse program, as well as the city's direct potable water program. We're doing sufficient and we're doing better in providing water and alternative water sources than many other cities in California and even Ventura County. So we are well positioned to meet the water needs of our community. And we have programs in place that we're just waiting to get all the approvals through the state. But we definitely have sufficient water, even with the drought. That doesn't mean that we don't still conserve. Of course we do. And of course, there are regulations that that the state puts upon all cities. But combined with our new water sources, our conservative approaches, and the way that we're deciding in building, we have sufficient water to meet these plans for the next 8 years for housing. Finally, though not directly a subject of the commission's action tonight, but ancillarily, the Teal Club project, any annexation project is required to bring with it their water sources, and upon annexation to surrender the water to the city. And that will be something that's subject to commission action and council action. It's not on the table tonight, but of course we have a few units in our housing element that will be accounted for in the Teal Club project. So even without the awesome, great programs I just mentioned that we have, the ASR program and the indirect potable water program, in addition, we have water that would be allocated to the city upon annexation. Finally, I wanted to mention about the sewer and the infrastructure capacity. We have sewer master plans that, like any city, we look at our sewer capacity, we look at flows, and we are updating our sewer master plan. But again, we have sufficient sewer capacity, and projects as they come on are required to contribute fees and do necessary improvements to keep the system running and humming along. So I hope that addresses the concerns that were raised in the letter. Of course, happy to answer further regarding water and sewer capacity. So with that, we did do a pre-recorded presentation. I think that's all kind of the comments I wanted to give this evening, and we're happy to answer any of your questions regarding this document.
Thank you, Ms. Mallory. Does anyone else on your staff have any additional comments that they want to provide?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for our staff on this item? All right, Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
Ms. Mallory, thank you so much to you, the consultants who are joining us remotely, and all the people behind the scenes, like you mentioned, too. Comment periods, and certainly engaging these last revisions after May and July. and responding to them. My only question, that I think the public or the presentation online mentioned that the summary of changes was all included in an appendix or addendum 8. And I had a question specifically to, I don't want to get tied up. I'm going to say program 30 and 31, which is reflected on page 66 of 70 of the attachment. So again, page 66 of 70, and I'll give you and others a second to pull it up. But it removed 2 programs that the city had that it no longer offers. I think they expired here in the last year or so, but it specifically made reference to program 30 and 31. And so I was wondering if there was any net loss total of housing units that would have been impacted by this removal. And then if so, if that was adjusted or made up anywhere else.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. I'm just, so program 30, vacant repeat sites for lower income RENA.
Mhm.
And program 31, non-vacant repeat sites.
Yes.
So I'm not sure, Heather, I don't mean to put you on the hot seat, but if you're able to respond to those 2 questions or those 2 programs and the 1 question.
Sure. So the reason those 2 programs were removed is because the city council approved the zone changes for the repeat sites and the for the vacant, the non-vacant and vacant repeat sites. So the program is no longer applicable.
So the question was, as a result of removing those programs, I was specifically wondering if there was any net loss of housing units that were lost by removing those 2 programs from the report. And if so, if those units were made up with one of the other changes.
No programs were, or no sites were removed as a result of that. The only reason those 2 programs were removed is because the objective of those programs have been met.
Okay, perfect. So it didn't correspond to a certain number of units, is
No.
what you're saying. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Any additional question, Commissioner Nash?
Chair, are we asking our general questions right now or just specific to what Ms. Mallory just said?
I would say really any questions. Ms. Mallory shaking her head that she can handle it.
Thank you. I want to start off by saying to our new commissioner that this was a pretty heavy lift for a brand new commissioner to come into a housing element. I mean, I don't think it gets much tougher than that. So I just want to encourage you to ask any question, and our staff is extremely patient, and we're patient. And believe me, I have asked many dumb questions over the years. So, and here's one of them right now. I saw this phrase and I couldn't really see it defined anywhere, but could you please explain what a targeted windshield housing condition survey is?
Sure, Commissioner Nash. So what there are certain standards in HC law to when you do a windshield survey. And there's details on what that involves, but and Heather, if you, Commissioner Nash, if you'd like more information on precisely what that definition is, I know Heather, she may have that on the ready, but it basically goes through the community, certain areas of a targeted area of the city, and you look at deterioration, the exterior. You're not looking at like landscaping. You're looking at the condition of the building. You look at like outside utility lines, windows, so that if there's sufficient infrastructure, insulation for window ceiling. So HCD wanted that really as a way to look at targeting money to meet for an improved deteriorated housing.
Okay, thank you. Great. I want to get back to the issue of water. And to me, and I've read the urban water management plan. I've read a lot of things, but there's this disconnect between the fact that we have a currently a restriction on water use where it's for our landscape irrigation, non-functional turf, it's 1 day a week, 15 minutes per station. So that is a huge red flag to me that, perhaps there isn't enough water for new housing. And how does staff, rectify the fact that we have this water restriction? And yet our documents tell us that, oh no, there's plenty of water for thousands of new homes. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, a couple things. I mean, yes, there definitely seems to be and is this constant push-pull between units and landscaping. So we have water for the critical things, right? Which is living, which is washing your clothes, brushing your teeth. That is the idea, is that water for the necessity of living. Is landscaping for the necessity of living? Well, maybe not in our housing element, right? But you also have to remember that the urban water management plan draws upon the general plan build out. So the units and the growth rate in the general plan and the unit count and the growth based upon the urban water management plan, these units fit within that amount of growth. So it's not an increase that is going beyond what is assumed within a plan that we develop and for water over the next, it's a 5-year plan. Urban water management plan is updated every 5 years. So it's hard. I mean, we get this question a lot, right? Where people are like, how can you be building housing? Every community hears this question. First, the state doesn't care. They just don't care. And we responded to the state's comments, giving them information on how we have water, and they want to see precisely the word. We have sufficient water and infrastructure to meet our housing element. We do, because we have planned for a certain amount of units in the urban water management plan. And in addition, we're making up for, and we have a blended source of water. Importantly, it's not just one source of water. So, it's not a situation where you should be just willy-nilly throwing water away. I mean, that just shouldn't happen, regardless of having sufficient water or excess water. But I other than like the actual numbers of showing you precisely, which our environmental document does do, we have assumed for the growth rate in the housing element over the next 8 years, we have assumed for that unit count in our environmental document and within our urban water management plan. So just to give you one more piece, just if this helps, when Public Works comes and says, we have to update our urban water management plan, they come over to planning and they meet with us and they look at capacity. They look at the number of units built, planned to be built in the next under the general plan. And then you factor in water conservation figures in terms and water sources and how much water you're getting from different sources. So it's not that they just say, oh, this is how much water we have, and they don't take into consideration types of land use and water usage associated with land use.
Okay, thank you for that. And I do want to acknowledge that we're right on the cusp of getting state approval for indirect potable water use, which means we can take the water from the advanced water purification facility, put it into our aquifer storage and recovery well. And that's 7,000 acre feet, which if I recall correctly, that is enough for 14,000 homes, which, far exceeds what the arena numbers that we're talking about here. So thank you for that. The on the letter from the HCD, they talked about parking, where parking should not be a hindrance to developing these units. And so that's the direction that the city is going or has gone.
Excuse me, Commissioner Nash, can you say the first word, what they said? Can you state you used a word I didn't capture?
Housing
Hardening.
Community development,
Mhm.
from their letter, they talked about parking.
Parking, thank you.
should not be a hindrance to developing, especially affordable units.
Yes,
So yes, okay, that's fine.
Yes.
That's really all I need.
yes.
In talking about single room occupancies, SROs, now they're to be allowed in one zoning district, but I didn't catch what zoning district that was specifically.
Understand, Commissioner, and what they're asking for us to do is to look at our zoning ordinance and to make a determination of allowing it in one zone. We are kicking off a comprehensive update to the zoning ordinance to address many programs that you see in this housing element. And so we'll be looking at what zone that is, what is best for our community. So we don't have that already right now, but we're studying that and we'll have that. And that zoning ordinance update will come before Commission and Council.
Is it the city's desire to limit SROs to a single zoning district? Because I know in Barbara Macri Ortiz's letter, she recommended the R3 and the R4 districts. Is the city amenable to that?
The intent is the law says one zone right now, so we haven't dug in on this. We are studying this. The program requirement says 2022 through 2023, so we're kind of tight on time on this one. But we are looking. I can't make a statement that it's just one or it'll be two. We're going to be evaluating what makes sense for our city.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair. When reviewing this housing element, I was really specifically prioritizing my time at least on the significant changes. If I could direct your attention to program 34 in regards to the pre-approved ADUs. It was my impression that there was already a lot being done by the city to promote and streamline the use of ADUs. So I was a little bit surprised when I saw the phrase, there are now going to be options for a streamlined building permit review process by fiscal year 24 to 25 Q2. Could you please correct or confirm what programs we have available right now that makes ADUs easier for our residents? And I feel that 2 years from now seems a little bit far when other cities seem to have already streamlined building permit reviews. If you could comment
Sure.
or
Yeah.
confirm, clarify.
Chair and
Thank you.
Commissioner, yeah, absolutely. The context of this is VCOG. So right now, we already streamlined the review. Right now, we comply with the law of the 60-day review and approval. So that's the law and we meet it and we do a great job with that. What this program is speaking to is it's very specific to the REAP money, the Regional Early Action Plan money. And what that is that's a program that is basically creating plans for somebody who says, I want to build an ADU, but I don't want to have to hire an architect or a draftsperson. And I don't want to have to pay, pick a number, $20,000 for my plans. This program, which is fantastic, it's going to be a countywide program. The plans will be designed and homeowner, Mr. Arejo, you will be having access to plans. You don't have to spend the $20,000. And so you'll have that and we'll have basically it's almost like a prototype wall. So like if you come in and get a plan or a fence and there's certain types of construction in cities where you say, I'm going to comply with this prototype stucco wall and they go, oh, okay, great. And then you're sailed through, you just basically attach the plan and you're through much quicker. That is what this speaks to. And this is regarding that REAP, it's REAP grant funded that's being developed and implemented through the VCOG here locally.
Okay, thank you. And if I could follow up. So you're saying that the fiscal year 24-25 date is there because we're basically latching on to the counties. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Ms. Mount, go ahead, Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. So Ms. Mallory, just in relation to the letter from Mr. Stein that was just delivered to us, it mentioned that you had some communication with him in regard to his concerns. which seem to be primarily around the adequacy of our citywide sewage system. So I'm wondering if you might be able to enlighten us on.
Sure, yes. So yeah, Mr. Stein, Commissioner Meyer came to the public counter. So I, of course, sat with him and answered his questions. And he was asking about, I gave him lots of information, including that we were updating our sewer master plan. And there was some, I think there may have been some slight he was perhaps not clear that it's common to update your sewer master plan. It's common to look at your systems. But that was my comment to him, which is we're updating our sewer master plan. We do have sufficient sewer capacity to meet the unit count in our housing element. So that was the extent of the conversation with him on sewer infrastructure.
Thank you, Ms. Mallory. Do we have, I guess, data on, I guess, the rate of sewer infrastructure malfunction or failures in the city? I haven't heard or haven't been aware of any significant concerns in that regard, but what do we know about?
Sure.
how we're
Yeah.
doing?
Great question. And we've been looking at that too, when we were looking at where to place ADUs and where to think about construction. Heather and I had a lot of conversations with the Public Works team on that. So we do know where lines are operational, where we need to condition projects. Doesn't mean that they're not sufficient. It means, oh, we have a little hiccup here and we may need to add some, upgrade this pipe in this location. So as part of our overall city capital improvement plan, that's what we look at, right? Everything below ground and above the ground. So they do know information. Public Works does know flow rate information. They do know, they have cameras that evaluate systems. So they are tracking that and they do know that. And those are factors that are being looked at as part of that sewer master plan, as well as where construction's happening and the flows associated with that construction and where tailored and targeted and developer deposited money to improve those systems should be placed.
Thanks very much. That's all my questions for now, Chair.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Ms. Mallory, I had just a couple of questions. Question in regards to the parking requirements. I know it's always been an issue with our city. We've had a lot of pushback from residents saying, where are all these people going to park at? Are we changing our city's parking requirements for any of our developments that are taking place?
I'm gonna answer briefly, and then Heather, maybe you may want to add some information. HCD was very interested in parking constantly, and do our regulations prohibit and restrict development. So many of the comments, if you just search parking in our revisions, many of the revisions speak to what the state's already allowing. So like if it's construction near a high quality transit corridor that has a specific headway, we're under certain requirements and laws in terms of how many parking spaces we can require, or a project with a density bonus request. So many of the comments and refinements spoke to just clarifying that piece in the law and how a developer is, or a housing developer or market rate housing developer can take advantage of those programs. So we added those bits of language to really appease HCD. We're doing it we know that, a developer can't, doesn't have to provide X parking, and we acknowledge that. And HCD came back and would want language tailored to state that. So it's like the breadcrumbs, clearly laid out. So that's kind of the global response, Heather. I don't know if you want to speak to any other specific programs that talk about modifying our parking standards.
Yes. So partially. One of them that is changing with this this amendment is the program. Let's see, program 27, the parking for the disabled. That's being moved over to residential parking, and but some of the other programs that speak towards parking, the high quality transit corridor, that when that's established, we'll be revisiting parking through there. And sorry, I was still writing down some notes. And then program 27 specifically is about parking, where we can revisit parking as well for reductions. Basically monitoring and seeing if parking is causing problems towards development, and adjusting parking requirements if we do see a pattern.
Thank you for that. Just a question on one of the comments you made in regards to the disability parking spaces and moving over to residential. Do we have standards laid out in regards to the number of required disabled parking spaces versus non-disabled?
Well, the disabled parking would fall under the different categories for assisted living and types of senior housing. And so those would all be moved over to residential. The disabled parking is being put under a general category, but that fits the industry-wide for senior housing, types of senior housing.
Okay. Another question that I had, Ms. Mallory, was, and maybe I overlooked it, or maybe it's not even in here. When we have these types of developments that are taking place, are there any contributions to neighborhood parks, developments that way? Because there's some neighborhoods that will never see development because they're just older and they're already set in their ways. And then there's brand new developments that take place. So what are we doing to try to improve some of those parks?
There's probably like 3 questions there, which is totally fine, Chair. No worries. But let me just go one by one. Yes, a development project does have to pay impact fees. And the impact fees vary depending upon the size of construction. So generally, yes, impact fees are to be paid. The second is that as part of our capital improvement plan, we do look at certain standards and within the city. It's not just money goes there, money follows the development. That's one of the great things about cities and the ways they plan is they look at, and a good well-run city, you look at where you create a standard, like a park standard by area and neighborhood. Then you look at how you're meeting that requirement. And so you slowly through your capital improvement budget, you look at funneling money to address those standards and those documents that establish that baseline and the vision for your community. And the third piece of that is the state had a really great program. Heather and I were really actively involved in it, which was providing for added money for parks and improvements. It was the now I'm of course forgetting the grant program that we worked on, Heather, but it was a specifically targeted housing parks grant. It's a novel, right? She said that. And the idea was that money was helping to augment parks in neighborhoods and areas where there was deficient infrastructure or deficient park standards. So I hope all 3 of those, it's money, it's capital planning, it's grant funds.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Last question. There might be another one later on, but in terms of going back to the water, I'm aware our city does very well when trying to conserve as much as possible. But is there a way that we can use more recycled water and sell it to developers versus, I believe it's potable water that that tends to go towards development? That might be a public works question, but if you had a response for that.
Well, that was one, I don't have is ultimately a public works question, right? But
Yes.
there are different things that we're thinking of doing. I mean, one goes kind of to what you're talking about, Chair, which is a restructure of the way that we're dealing with procuring water. And that's like, the whole adage, right? Buy low, sell high, same type of idea, right? So the idea is just to buy more water, when there's an abundance of it, and then to sell it at not necessarily higher prices, but to sell it and make a profit to the city to be able to upgrade the infrastructure. But I mean, ultimately, it is more of a public works. But yeah, I mean, the idea is just different water sources. We do want to be and this is solid. This is basically from Public Works because we had a good conversation when I was speaking with the Energy Commission. I spoke with Sherry, who I really admire. She's doing great things for the city. But that is something we're looking at doing, which is to buying water, and you're saying to sell it. We are looking at ways we'd love to be able to have the way to buy more water in wet years and to store it and then to be able to sell it. So that is a great goal. And that's a much bigger conversation than even our city, but that is something that the Public Works and City Managers Group is ultimately looking at.
I appreciate that. And I apologize. That wasn't a fair question, but you did very well of giving a response. So thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move to the public. I only had one person sign up to speak. Is he on the call or?
Yes, Chair, he is on the call, and we also have someone here present that submitted a speaker card.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and let's go ahead and take Miss Barbara Macker-Ortiz.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Barbara Macker-Ortiz, and I'm here, first of all, to say good job. Kathleen and Heather and the team worked very, very hard. Something happened this time with HCD that you should be aware of. They really are turning into an enforcement agency as well as it used to be. You send in the plan, it comes back, and things have changed. And when people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, HCD is out there with their enforcement unit. The Attorney General has gotten involved in some cases. So they're taking it much more seriously because of just the desperation that we have with respect to housing. So I've been working with them and they've kept me informed in terms of the changes. And I think we've got a really good element. One big thing this year was the affirmative furthering of fair housing. And this is probably the first housing element where they really required a higher bar. And that was when our element came back initially, that was one of the big issues. How are we going to affirmatively further fair housing? So that is a challenge, and that's one we're going to have to meet as we go forward. With respect to water, I just want to say a couple of things. New development today uses a lot less water. So that's one thing. And second, I don't know if this ever happened, but when I was involved in the wagon wheel project, they were talking about doing a dual piping so that water could come up, the recycled water, and be used. I don't know if that ever happened, but I think that was kind of in the grand scheme of things. And that's been about 10 years ago now. But anyhow, so I think we're progressing in that respect. With respect to parking, it's the same story everywhere. I was just in Ojai today and, what are the neighbors going to say about the parking? But my motto is we need to house people, not cars. And so it is going to be suffering until we can get public transit to be much better. But, we see what's happening with the homeless. And they're living in their cars, some of them, So it's just something we kind of have to grind our teeth and do it the way we want. Now we're talking about the curb cuts, which I think is very good in terms of it will be helping create a parking space here and there. in the neighborhoods that are impacted. And the only way we're going to address impacted neighborhoods is opening up more housing so people can live. I don't know if I could have a couple of more minutes, if that would be okay.
I would be.
Is there any objection?
No objections.
Go ahead.
Just in respect to the SROs, I think what HCD is saying is you got to have one zone. So we have to have one zone, but I think when we get into the discussions, we're going to have to talk about it in terms of where does it make sense, and moving it into the residential areas, I think, and the commercial areas. With respect to the pre-approved ADU program, the county did create some plans that they've been using for several years where somebody can just go in and say, hey, this will fit in my backyard. And that will be a godsend, because it's really hard to get all the plans and everything and make everybody happy. It's really a challenge. And last, I just want to say, with respect to sewer, I have a little different take on sewer now after having served in that committee. I can't even remember what it was, the advisory committee. I think Commissioner Nash was on it too. I was a alternate on that. But what I have seen from learning, understanding what it's all about, and then seeing what we've been doing and seeing what Public Works has been doing, I feel really good. There are going to be probably downtown, you're going to need to resize pipes to get more water in there. But I really have a tremendous amount of respect for I guess it would be the Public Works people, the engineers and all. They really do their homework. And, we are so lucky compared to some cities. I mean, we really are. Everybody rags on Oxnard, but when I get out there and see what's going on, we've got some real professionals that have some vision. So I'm very excited about, our potential as we go forward. And disabled parking. See, anybody that's disabled can get what they call it, accommodation, a reasonable accommodation. So you can get disabled parking anywhere that you need it. And then with respect to in the developments, be the same thing, where the property management should be tying it to, if somebody comes in and says, I need a disabled parking, they're going to try to move their parking space closer to their unit. So it's getting better. It's getting a lot better, guys. And I've been doing this since 1990. So, we're doing well. And I thank everybody for all their hard work, because it does take a lot of hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Macker-Ortiz. We'll go to our next speaker, caller ending in 4978.
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Larry Stein speaking. There's some misnomers going on by our Development Services Committee. First of all, the 42,000 current ratepayers of our water program should be entitled to the first 3 skids of the water and not new development. 3 skids of water is the equivalent of water for 42,000 homes. Again, these should be people getting the water and not new development, because we are paying for this water right now. 42,000 people are paying $14 million a year to use the great water that we're not getting, on top of the fact we're also paying for imported water that we have to pay for because we're not getting the great water. The sewer problems, again, we have issues where the plans have not been completed, and I have no timeline when the plans have not been completed. The capital improvement projects have nothing in the capital improvement projects for the next 5 years for the water lines and for the sewer lines. Again, look at the capital improvement projects. Giving this water away to the new developers who have not contributed a dime toward this project is wrong. We have 42,000 ratepayers who've been paying this program for 10 years. They should be the first grabs for the water. Again, where does the surplus water come from? Again, we have our dams are running out of water. The Colorado River is running out of water. The state does water. Where's the water going to come from to meet the new housing developments? Again, looking at 2,000, 5,000 homes. Where's the water for those homes if we don't have enough water now? The GMA has indicated that they're cutting back our water by 50%. So how the heck can we have sufficient water for new housing if the GMA is cutting back our water by 50% in the next 3 years? Again, we're getting information from staff, and staff is giving you misinformation, not taking the full considerations into account. They bend over backwards to developers and take advantage of the ratepayers who say nothing. I've been following these issues for a long period of time, and we've always been taken advantage of by our development service department. They underpay, they do not collect sufficient funds from developers for projects, and developers are supposed to be getting first grabs of everything when the people have been paying for are getting nothing. Again, I strongly urge you to reject this project until we see the actual cost for our water and our actual cost for our sewer plants. Again, these are master plans that have been in the books for years, and we still not get this private citizen cannot get the cost displayed to me or distributed to me through public record requests. I ask these questions and don't get answers. Again, thank you so much for your time. I strongly recommend reject this project and wait another 2 years until we actually see what's coming on for our actual water and actual sewer problems. The city is not fixing the problems. They just say, we got this plan, we got that plan, but they don't fix the problems. We have water issues because we're in a drought. We have cutbacks that we have to participate. If we have to cut back water, how's new water come in for new development? Where's the water
Thank you,
going
Mr.
to come
Stein.
from? Where is new source of water going to come from? That's not been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stein. Okay, are there any additional members of the public wishing to speak on this item, whether virtually or in person? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go ahead and close the public comments for this item, bring it back to the commission for any additional question. Well, before that, Ms. Mallory, do you want to respond to any comments that were made by members of the public?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the commission if they have any additional questions. If not, we'll move to deliberation on this item. We're now in deliberation. Any comments on this item? Commissioner Connolly.
I have a lot to say, but I'll keep it short and sweet. I speak in support of the housing element. It's a hardy document, but it has some good plans going forward. And I love giving the professionals, credit where credit is due. So obviously staff's done an amazing job, and having conditional approval by the state, it's kind of a no-brainer to me that this is where we need to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Vice Chair Rejo.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Yes, this is not just one meeting. This has been several iterations, City Council, Planning Commission, and with the state. And really kudos to the team managing it. Just the responses are so detailed. It really gave me all the information I really needed for any questions that I had throughout reading the initial and the amended and updated drafts. In my opinion, it is a no-brainer to approve the housing element as it stands before us. There are more and several ways helped by the state, but also by the initiatives by the county and the city itself to increase housing and to increase housing to those who are the low and extremely low. My only caution is that we do say that we are going to be proposing these low and extremely low unit numbers. I specifically refer to programs 26 and 29. And I'm hopeful that the City Council is going to introduce new policies to ensure that happens in the next 8-year period. I don't believe any city in the county were able to meet any of their numbers for low, extremely low, or even as a total in the previous 8 years. And so hopefully as was stated in another public comment, with the state bearing down and making sure that all the cities are acting equitably, that the good that Oxnard is doing is going to show up, and it's going to show up not only in the quality that we feel, but also in the numbers, which really tell the story, at least for me, in what I look at. And so I urge my fellow members to vote in favor of the housing element before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank our two public speakers. They are both great advocates for getting the city to do the proper thing. And I do want to express my gratitude to the interplay between housing and community development, our housing advocates, and our staff. I think that is the path to the future. It's given us a good housing element, and that means a lot. I'm still very wary of the water issue because so much of it is out of our hands. We don't know ultimately what the climate will do in regards to the state water project and the Colorado River. So nobody can predict the future, but all we can do is plan, and the city has developed facilities that are new sources of water, the advanced water purification facility specifically. So we just have to find a way to get that water into the ground and get permission from the state to reuse it at some point. Changes are coming. People will have to give up their turf, I believe, and move to appropriate landscaping for what is essentially a desert environment. So I'm happy to support this this document, and in whatever the cycle is, 8 years, that we'll see where we are. A question, Ms. Mallory, I can't recall. Does the Planning Commission weigh in on the urban water management plan when it gets? I think that's on a 5-year cycle, so we don't. But the public can.
Yes, the public can comment on, Commissioner.
Okay, well, that's great. And those are my comments, and I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also want to express my appreciation to Ms. Mallory's team and all of the work that they've done and the years that it's taken to accomplish this task. It's clear that it's not business as usual. We're not in a business as usual time. We're at a time where we're dealing with multiple challenges that are dramatic, and figuring that out requires a lot of work and a lot of challenge. I appreciate the challenge that comes with the state increasing enforcement of housing laws and regulations, and I appreciate the need for that. And it might fall harder on cities that aren't doing their due diligence at the level that we are. And I think that's just a necessary step, just as is the challenge of us being in a drought and being forced to let our turf die. And that creates an opportunity for us to say, okay, well, what do I want to do now? Do I want to try to lay out a bunch of new turf, or do I want to try a drought tolerant garden, yard, some other form of things, because climate change, and this is what we have to do. And I'm one that is very centered in the general welfare concept of what it is to be an American. Freedom is always talked about, and the other side of the freedom is talked about a lot less. So I think that when we have plans like these that really think about the greater good, and that comes with sacrifices, and we're all going to have to see those sacrifices. And that comes in terms of parking experience. It comes in terms of how do we manage our water, and will we have to pay more, have less, figure things out. We're in that time, and so there should be vigorous discussion. There should be debate. There should be a lot of commentary from the public that expresses all these points of view, because that's the nature of the times we're in. So I think that's reflected pretty well in our plan, and I know that it's going to be a tough road to hoe going forward. And I'm glad we have people that are prepared to move in that direction and deal with the challenges thereof. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? I'll just say real quick that I support this document and all the hard work that our staff, our consultant team have put into this. I asked those questions in regards to the parking because in a way, I kind of feel like parking requirements in the city of Oxnard are a little harsh sometimes, depending on what they are. And that I agree with Ms. Macker Ortiz that we should be looking more towards housing people versus our vehicles. That's why I would prefer to see something, and it sounds like the state's already doing that anywhere around public transit or high frequency transit, that parking standards are a lot less, which I'm a huge fan of, not only because of my transportation background, but any opportunity that I get to use public transit, I utilize it. I have 2 cars, but if I have that opportunity, I use it because that's one less car on the road. Of course, I think about the water issue, but I'm confident enough in our staff that over the past couple of years, and I don't know, maybe it's our city manager, who's not technically new anymore, coming in and putting good people in the positions to put our city in a path that are thinking 5-10 years down the road that is going to benefit generations to come to our city. We have good people like Ms. Mallory, who is very passionate every time when she's talking about our development and our planning and what we're looking at down the road. And this document speaks to that. So, of course, like anything else, I always prefer our city to go above whatever standard or baseline that the state sets for us. So if they say this is the baseline for parking, I would expect us to go above that and be that leader in the community. 14% of cities turning in a housing plan. I'm glad that we're part of that 14%. Because what are the consequences, Ms. Mallory, for cities not submitting a plan? Just for the public, so that they're aware that there are some serious consequences that come with that.
Substantial, Chair. Withholding the homeless solutions funding. I mean, millions. There's been discussion about withholding in the future gas tax money. There's been litigation. It is substantial, very much so.
Thank you. So for any person that's around there saying that there are no consequences for not submitting our document, it's completely false. And I too will encourage my commissioners to support this. There is a review midpoint, right? There's a review that it comes back and it gets determined if adjustments need to be made. So there's opportunities for us to adjust as needed. Is there any additional questions or comments? Question? Motion?
I'd like to make the recommended motion, that is to receive the presentation on the draft amended City of Oxnard 6th cycle 2021 through 2029 housing element and adopt resolution 2022-XX recommending City Council approval of the draft amended City of Oxnard 6th cycle 2021-2029 housing element as Chapter 8 within the 2030 general plan.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the vice chair. So it's been moved and seconded to receive a presentation on the draft amended City of Oxnard sixth cycle 21-29 housing element and adopt a resolution 2022 recommending that the city council approve of the draft amended City of Oxnard sixth cycle 21-29 housing element as chapter 8 within the 2030 general plan. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none. Mr. Secretary, can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Dr. Lopez,
Aye, thank you.
Vice Chair Arrojo,
Aye.
Commissioner Connolly,
Aye, thank you.
Commissioner Meyer,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Zelzendorf,
Aye, thank you.
and Chair Chavez.
Aye, thank you.
Motion passes.
Thank you for that. Congratulations to Ms. Mallory and the team and to our city for a well-written and put together document. And thank you to the public for their input as well. So we'll go ahead and proceed to our agenda. Item G, study sessions reports. Nothing is listed. Item H, Planning Commission business. Commissioners, any business to bring before? Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I am just excited that since pandemic and Zoom time, this is the first time that 7 of us have been on the dais. So I think that's something to congratulate us on. So, and I'm glad that Commissioner Zelzendorf was here to for that. So hopefully we can get a lot more 7 count dais in the future. Also, I want to welcome Commissioner Zelzendorf. Actually, unfortunately, we don't know each other directly, but indirectly, we're very connected. Usually the first time I meet people, I Facebook friend people. And unfortunately, when I came onto the Planning Commission, I wasn't mutual Facebook friends with anyone. You are mutual Facebook friends with 2 of the most important people in my lives, my mother and my godmother. So don't listen to stories from them. Just judge what you judge me for what you see here on the dais. Thank you very much and welcome again.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I wanted to share as also being the president of the board of the Central Coast Alliance United for a Sustainable Economy, also known as CAUSE. That CAUSE is having its annual Raising Justice event. It's an annual fundraiser and community gathering. It'll be in person for the first time in 3 years, which is something that's quite exciting. Typically 300 plus people will be in attendance. So I wanted to share that, and I definitely welcome my fellow commissioners if they'd be interested in attending. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash.
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 things. Assembly member Steve Bennett held a water symposium that has been recorded. It was pretty good. And if you go to his official website, you can click on the link and watch it and learn quite a bit about the water situation in Ventura County. The other item is this last Tuesday, the County Board of Supervisors held a memorial for Supervisor Carmen Ramirez, and that also was pretty fantastic. It's remarkable to hear the testimony from such a wide range of people, and especially politicians who just, they just do not fawn over each other, but they certainly fawned over Carmen and deservedly so. So those were the 2 things, and Carmen will always be in our hearts, and I want to wish her family and her husband well. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any additional business? Commissioner Dr. Lopez.
A quick public welcome to our new commissioner, Zielsdorf. I'm sorry. So excited to have you join our commission. I think you add to the diversity and of the composition of the council, but certainly very well connected. And I hope that you are able to bring the richness of those diverse perspectives, backgrounds, and networks that you are a part of in our community. And just wanted to publicly welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Any additional business? I'll just say real quick, Commissioner Zelsdorf, find out as much as you can on Vice Chair Rejo and share it with the rest of us. Monthly or bi-weekly reports are always nice. But in all serious, welcome. It's great to be able to serve with you. We actually were part of the Oxnard leadership program with the Oxnard Chamber at that time, which is now the West Ventura County Business Alliance back in 2019, before the world changed and everyone went back into indoors. So it's great that we're getting to a somewhat new norm of going back to in person. I just want a few announcements is that this past couple of weeks on September 1st, all transit agencies in Ventura County are offering free bus rides to all youth 18 and under. There's also still the college ride free program that is still taking place. So students with IDs or just look young enough can board any bus. I say that as I have so many gray hairs on my sides. But if you can go ahead and hop aboard a bus, it's free. You get to school, you get back home, you go hang out with friends, wherever it may be. Have a ride with Gold Coast, VCTC, Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, and the list goes on. I also want to mention that Metrolink is offering a back to school campaign, and that any university that is within the Metrolink service area, you have the opportunity of being able to receive 2 free tickets when you download the Metrolink app, and then be able to save 25%. So you 25% in all passes for students. And that is with utilizing your student email account as you sign up. The month of September is Rail Safety Month. So reminding people to be smart when you approach railroad tracks and do not stop on the railroad tracks. It is better to keep your life for a few minutes versus losing it in 1 minute. On Wednesday, September 21st, which is going to be next week in Thousand Oaks, Metrolink will be hosting the 2022 Trespassing and Suicide Prevention Safety Summit. This will be in downtown Burbank. If anyone's interested, I will give that information to Mr. Pearson and he can distribute it. With that, I have nothing further. Any other comments? Nope. Then we'll go ahead and turn it over to our staff. Mr. Pearson.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Commissioners, have 2 quick updates. Since it came up earlier today, I did want to note that the curb cut policy is going to City Council on the 20th. So that it was discussed a few times today by both the public and the commission. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then also I just want to acknowledge that we have our new staff member here, Miriam Loera. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But we're very excited to have her here. I believe I mentioned that she would be joining us at our last planning commission meeting. So she's going to be the recording secretary for the commission. So again, you guys will get to interact with her on a regular basis. She's been with us now for 2 weeks. This will be the end of your 2nd week, and it has been awesome to have her here on our team. She's a great asset and is really excited about the job and getting to work with the commission and everyone here. So again, we're just very excited to have her join us.
Welcome. Be careful what you wish for, because some of these people. Okay. Welcome in all seriousness. And we thank our Mr. Secretary for filling in for our meetings as well. Any questions? Nope. So since there's no further business before the commission, and if there's no objection to adjourning, we will be adjourning to our next meeting, which is, I close my agenda.
October 6th.
October 6th.
October 6th.
October 6th. Thank you. October 6th. With that, as always, thank you for my colleagues for their hard work. Thank you to the public for their input. Stay safe and have a great night.